So today on Simply Happy Conversations, I have with me Linda. She is an OT and she is based here in Geelong and she works for OK Therapy. Welcome, Linda.
Thanks, Rob.
Oh, it's so good to have you and to have your wisdom about heading back to school and all the routines that we need to get in check. So let's start with you telling us a bit about yourself, things you like to do maybe in your free time. Well, if you have a bit of free time.
Yeah, well, free time, that would be nice. I have two kids, 14 and 8. So free time is usually spent doing things with them. But we do like our time together. So we spend lots of time at home playing board games and hanging out. I personally love going for walks and exercising and spending lots of time with my friends and go for coffee. And so that's my list of things that I like to do when I'm not busy with everything else.
When you're not working, that's the thing, isn't it? So there isn't much spare time, but that spare time you have time to enjoy the outdoors and walking. So tell us about an OT. What is an OT? Because I'm sure there's people who are listening who are like, what does OT stand for and what do they do?
Yes, OT, occupational therapy, or occupational therapist, depending on which context we're using it in. It's a great question, and it's a question that I think we ask 1,000 times a day and people ask of us because it can encompass so much. But occupational therapist comes from the word occupation. And an occupation is anything that people do throughout the day, from waking up to going to sleep at night. So we look at a lot of things, obviously, in that context. So I have worked in lots of different areas over the years. I've been, I think, over 20 years since I'd graduated, and currently working in the pediatric space. So that is even bigger in some ways, because kids need lots of support, right? And definitely. Parents. So that's where I've been for about the last 7 years. And we are predominantly working with children with neurodiverse backgrounds. So a lot of diagnoses of autism, ADHD, intellectual disability. So we're not only supporting the kids, but we're also supporting the families and their carers. So yeah, when you look at someone's occupation, we're starting with when they wake up and how they get ready in the morning, how they get dressed, how they have their breakfast, brush their teeth, pack their school bags if they're at school, get to and from school, engage in their daily activities. So obviously a lot of that is for our school kids being at school, engaging with their friends, handwriting, but we also do kinder and littler ones as well. So that's just all play-based intervention there. So massive.
There is, isn't it? And that's the thing. If you've never been involved, you don't realize how much there is to people's lives at a young age, because you do think of occupation, nurse, doctor, that type of thing.
That's correct. Like their job,
a job, not as in just daily living, really, isn't it? When it comes to children. So we tend
to we break it down into like as you said, activities of daily living, but we sort of look at the personal activities of daily living. So that's sort of self-care, feeding, sleeping, toileting, and then there's the domestic sort of side of things, which is obviously getting organised, making beds, preparing food, if they're doing housework, in that aspect. And then community-based ATL, so obviously being out in the community, and that can encompass working or going to a sporting group, being at school. So it does encompass, from sun up to sundown, and everything in between is where we kind of look at things. So it's a bit hard to define that sometimes.
Yeah, no, but you've done a great job of defining it and giving the examples of the different age groups and how it encompasses their lives. So which one do you prefer, pediatrics?
Yeah, I've worked in lots of different areas. So I started in mental health, working on a psychiatric inpatient unit for about 18 months, and then worked in community mental health, both adult and children's, for about 5 years or so. And I've also done some return to work stuff in there when I moved positions, and then some aged care. So really huge range. And I think that's the beauty of our being an OT is that you can move around to so many different areas, age groups, because it's never ending where we can kind of put ourselves really.
And do you find that even the people that you work with and you've worked with in the past, that as their family around them maybe age and stuff, they sort of move with that as well?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, some people haven't go for a niche and stay in it forever. But I kind of always feel that if you've got an ability to engage with somebody, and do some problem solving, because that's what our job entails quite a lot of, is problem solving and coming up with new ways of doing things, or educating people, then you can kind of work in any area. Obviously, there's some very specialty areas that you might want to build on, but it's really nice to see different ages and support people in different ways. And I think when I first graduated, it really was quite daunting working in pediatrics, because I knew that children come with parents and families. And so you're not just working with one person. But as I've been a parent, and I have a neurodiverse child, I suppose I just kind of was like, this is a really good area that I could kind of work with, and come with an understanding of how difficult it is. But yeah, people can move around, and even working in pediatrics, you can decide that you want to go from 0 to 5 and do that range, or you might want to be the older teens and do sort of transition to employment or leaving school. And so even in this pediatric space, there's so many different areas we can work on. You can specialize in eating and feeding, or toileting, or behavior. So it's even in this pediatric space, it's still a huge range.
So give us an example, like, of a particular problem that you've been maybe solving, or you've solved in the past, and some of the things that you've done to help that family.
So we would would always go through an initial assessment and kind of have an idea of what the goals are from the parent. So it could be transitioning between leaving home and getting to school, and how that goes. And obviously there's lots of steps along the way and lots of emotions that can kind of come with that transition. But maybe just kind of keeping the morning routines quite the same, making sure that the children understand what's coming. So doing some visuals, which you would have talked about lots in your podcast. And so just giving that pre-warning, okay, well, if this is causing really a lot of distress, then these are the steps we're going to go through this morning. We're putting a picture up, and letting the child know what's happening. And then, okay, where are we going? How long is it going to take? Maybe if it's a car ride that's distressing, we put some fidgets or some weighted items into that car ride. If the noise is too much, perhaps some earphones to support that, or just listening to music and having a sing-along in the car. So, that can be some really simple strategies that will help get that child through their morning routine, and mum or dad, to then get ready for the school day. So
that's a great example of the things that you could put in the car, if that's the presentation. The issue is getting into the car. What can we do? What's going to reduce that sensory overload, isn't it?
Absolutely, because it could be, the car ride could be quite distressing because of all the visual stimulation going past them in the car, or it could be the noise of the car on the road, or the cars around them. And I think that that takes up a lot of our time in the day, is getting the thing that the child is struggling with, and going, okay, what can we do to help with that? And here's our go-to strategies. But if they don't work.
So is that probably the part that you enjoy the most, that whole problem solving, when they come back and they're like,
and I think I suppose that's the beauty of working within a really supportive team, is that you can be like, oh my goodness, I've tried this, I've tried that. where else can I look? And an example, I had this, she's now grade 3, but a grade 2 little girl. And we've gone through some handwriting practice, and we've done lots of things, and we've tried, bolder lines, and we tried raised lines and different pencils. And then one of the girls said, "Oh, have you looked at her visual processing?" And I was like, "Well, I do work on that all the time, but I haven't really done a assessment in a little while." So we looked at it and found out, noticed that she was having a lot of difficulties with processing what she was saying. Feedback to mum, and she went and got an assessment by an optometrist, and she now has to wear glasses because she has a lazy eye, and she's got 20/20 vision, but her ability to process was tricky. So we look at lots of different strategies, but sometimes it's just someone going, "What about that?"
Yeah.
Let's look at that now.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
yes.
Yeah. So we do spend a lot of time. Luckily, we have long car rides between appointments sometimes, and time to process that.
And that's the other beauty, I think, of OTs is the ones that I've engaged with, is that they can come to schools, which takes that pressure off of leaving work, going and getting a child and disrupting, a few hours of their day.
Absolutely.
But coming in, and I know for my children, they really liked it being at school because that's where they see learning, and they're learning new skills. So why not learn those new skills at school? And you get to see the school environment when they were younger, and be able to point out some things to teachers as well about maybe the environment.
Yeah, we do. We spend a lot of time between lots of different schools and homes and kinders, and so it's nice to be able to go out and see children in different environments and where they spend a lot of time in their school.
Yeah. So then what would be your top tips around transitioning to school over the school holidays? Like from holidays to now.
From to now. Yes.
In term 1, really.
I know it's really tricky, and I don't know, as much as you can prepare for it, it still kind of hits you like a ton of bricks, and it is in our house at the moment, that's for sure. But I think obviously lots of, which you've talked about, lots of talk and organisation before school starts, and making sure uniforms fit and school bags are emptied and hats are available. You don't find a makey banana in the bottom of it.
No, that's 6 weeks later lunchbox that's still there. That I'd asked for from the first week. Yes.
But I think we have to remember that school holidays are a long time, and kids get a lot out of their regular routine, and they're also they need to build up back to school fitness a little bit. So I think just going back to routine, I find that I'm going to a visual and letting kids know what's happening. So whether it be a daily schedule, which we kind of run at home. For us, we kind of have like obviously a monthly plan, but then every day put up what's happening for today. So this is, what the day is, what's going on, where you're going in the morning, what's happening after school. Some children benefit from the visuals in their bedrooms to remind them of their morning routines. And as you've talked about, like the bag tags and reminders of what needs to be taken to school every day. And all that does is it reduces the demand on children to remember. It reduces the demand on parents to be, have you done this? Have you done that? And if a lot of parents are like me, that, work, that you get the kids back to school and you're back at work. So mornings are a lot more rushed, and you don't have as much time. So it takes the pressure off the parents as well. And it helps build kids' independence by them going, oh, here's my list. I've done all this. So I think routines and visuals is really important, and letting kids know what's happening.
Definitely,
I also think obviously sleep is massive. So getting into good sleep habits, and making sure, we have regular bedtime routines, nighttime routines, making sure that that's all working for the child. And diet obviously is another big one. It's not easy with some of our children. Trying your hardest to get them to have good eating habits. A lot of kids at the moment, as I said, are out of school, fitness. They come home, they're starving, they're thirsty. So making sure you're getting good hydration, food into the kids. I also think that we sometimes make an assumption as parents and probably therapists that there will be a really great handover from the previous teacher to the next teacher. And that sometimes happens, but sometimes that doesn't. And I think therapists, we really try to get in the face of teachers so that we can say, look, this is what worked last year. This is about this child. I always try and do a bit of an all about me with the child, either end of the year we develop it together or in the holidays, so that can go to the teachers and people that are important and involved in the kids' lives. So I think, making sure that, not that we're harassing teachers, but that teachers understand that these are some issues that might be difficult. This is what we're noticing. A lot of kids are really good at masking how they're, what's happening in the day. And then they, have those meltdowns or zone out times in the afternoon. So just feeding that back to the teacher and sort of perhaps, could we have a break here, or this is where this is tricky in the day. So I sometimes as a therapist will, look at a child's day and go, where are the moments in your day that are a little bit trickier? Is it recess? Is it lunch? Is it eating? Is it assembly? Is it drop off? So just to kind of pinpoint some of those times as well, and putting a bit more support in there. So, and another big one, once we've done all of those million things, is if there is behaviour changes, kind of seeing that as a way of the child communicating that something's not right. So not that they're misbehaving, they're being naughty, lazy, whatever you want to call it, but kind of going, what's going on? Like, this isn't usual. What can I do? Do I need to lean into my therapist? Do I speak to the teacher? And making sure that you're kind of listening to your child through their behaviours. And that's their way of communicating as well. And also remembering that kids want to do things they love. And if that's gaming, then let them game for a bit. If that's playing with their dog, really letting kids engage in those activities that they love and that make them feel good. If that's listening to them talk about Minecraft for a half an hour, talk about Minecraft for half an hour, put a timer on it, and just remembering that sometimes they need to be involved in those things they love and that make them feel good and that they're good at.
Especially after school, isn't it? That's that time that I've noticed, especially this year, that they really need that downtime. And it was really hard last week going straight back into sport. Sport all seemed to start. It's almost like sport, you all need to start in 2 weeks' time. Give us 2 weeks of school and then you can all go back to your seasons. But not last week, because I think that was definitely like the spanner in the works for us. It was like, what? And now I've got to go to sport. And it was like, yeah, sorry.
Yes, exactly. And another big one that is happening in our house a little bit at the moment is some skills that the kids have previously been very independent in, taking a back seat, and they're all of a sudden asking for help and can't do it. So I think that just being mindful that can happen when the stresses on us are a bit overwhelming, and so maybe there might be moments with shoelaces that they need help with. Again,
packing lunches,
emptying school bags, exactly.
Yes.
And I think that feeds straight back into those visuals. Is that they, parents will often say, oh, they used to have that, but, they never looked at it. But I think start of the year, perhaps we need to just, go back to it, renew them, make them a bit more updated, a bit more funky, put some better pictures, just to give that gentle reminder. I don't think there's any harm in doing that.
No, definitely. Like ours is now on the front door as you leave the front door, but it's words, but it's like, have you and it's got the things. Have you packed these things? So and look, I'm sure if I took them away, they would be like, Mum, where's it gone? But they don't say that they use it. But I'm sure at the moment they're using it without you really noticing. So I know I have clients who say, oh, yeah, we had that when they were younger. It's like, yeah, but you might need it again now. Like,
absolutely. Yes.
Because if they're having like a really terrible day, their executive functioning is not working and they can't remember all the things that they needed to take.
That's right. There's a lot of new stuff going in, lots of new teachers' names and students' names, and where do I put my locker and where do I sit? And there's lots and lots of new things that happen, and some of the regular stuff goes out the door.
So just like a quick thing about then secondary school, from primary school to secondary school. Have you got any sort of tips around that?
Yes. Yeah. Well, yes, I hope so, because I'm running a group about it at the moment. So I should. Yeah, I think just going back to what is required to be taken to and from school every day. The children, it's all online now, timetables, etc. Some schools, if you're lucky, they will write it out in normal language instead of PS 47 BPA. So assisting your child to do that. So I've done it with both my kids, year 9 and year 3, because you could access there. So just putting, you've got English with this teacher in this room, got a double period. Do you need to take anything extra for that? So color coding.
Yes, I did that
for
last year.
So English is in a pink folder, and English is in our pink in your timetable. So some of the folders you can get now got the little zippy things around it, so you could put the book, like the writing book in it, plus the book they read, whatever else they need for that class in it, and zip it up. I know that kids have got to take pencil cases and folders and laptops and water bottles and a lot. So even getting them a little bag to carry around between classes, because if you struggling with packing things up in time and carrying all the things, and if you're going up and down flights of stairs and pushing and shoving between the hundreds of kids that are around, you've got it in a little bag and you're not going to drop it. Doesn't matter if you've got a loose piece of paper. I think that's a good
idea.
I think that's a really beneficial one to make sure that you've got everything you need, rather than lugging it around. So that's a really good tip. And the same thing, routine, doing your visuals, good diet, good fluid intake, especially at the moment when it's a bit hot, and getting them into sleep. And we could start on screen times, but we'll leave that.
That's another whole conversation, isn't it?
That's right. But again, like making sure they're doing things they love, and not being hurt when they don't want to talk to you. Not being as a parent, not being upset, not taking it personally, but making sure when that the children know that you're there for them, and that if they need you, you'll step up. Just making sure that they know you're there for them.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Linda, for your time and for all of those tips. So how can people find OK Therapy?
Yeah, well, they can go to our website, www.ok, which is okay.com.au, and we're also on all socials. We've got about 18 staff there now.
Wow.
So we have OTs and some speech therapists and some therapy assistants as well. So we're pretty busy, but it's worth reaching out and just touching base with us.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for your time and sharing all your knowledge.
Thank you, Narelle.